Trader Joe's is famous for its cheese section. It's got cult classics, budget Bries, and some seriously weird wild cards. I've been dreading this cheese all day. But which of these deserve the hype, and which of them are just fancy packaging? I'm cheese expert Liz Thorpe, and today I'm gonna be trying them all. This is the ultimate Trader Joe's cheese taste test. We'll start with elevated snacking cheeses. Higher quality cheeses to grab from the fridge or nosh on the go. Creamy Toscano soaked in Syrah. This for me is one of the Trader Joe's cult classics. This is a firm Italian-style cheese soaked in red wine. This is an homage to a very classic traditional style of cheese made in Italy called ubriaco cheeses. That means drunken cheese. And the cheese essentially bathes in the wine, and also sometimes they'll even pierce holes in the cheese and the wine flavors will permeate into the center of the cheese. This has been rubbed and soaked with a wine mixture. No holes have been pierced. The flavor is only on the rind. It's like a creamy, buttery Parmesan. But as you move closer to the outside of the cheese, really discernible notes from the red wine. It's fruity, but it's not sweet. So Trader Joe's doesn't make any cheese. They go out and they find the best-selling, sort of fundamental, foundational flavors and styles, and then they find cheesemakers who will make those cheeses under their own brand. If I'm gonna eat a flavored cheese, this is the kind of flavored cheese I'm gonna reach for. Unexpected cheddar. So this is a cheddar, but it's described as having flavors like a Parmesan. The way that you do this is by adding a very specific kind of bacteria to the milk during the beginning of the cheese making process. It's called an adjunct culture. And it breaks down the fats and proteins in such a way that it releases flavor compounds that we read as nutty. So that's really where they're getting that Parmesan-y quality from. There's this sort of fine white grit on the outside of the cheese. It's calcium lactate crystals, simply something that happens over time, and it's something you'll see on the exterior cut surface of block cheddar. This feels like an aged block cheddar. It's dense, it's kind of crumbly in the mouth watery finish, sharpness, but underneath it all are those nutty, savory Parmesan flavors. It does not surprise me that this has won Trader Joe's Customer Choice Award for 7 straight years. New Zealand Sharp Cheddar. This is 6 to 12 months old. What you cannot ignore about this cheese right off the bat is that it is bright yellow because it is made of grass-fed cow's milk. The beta-carotene in the grass passes through their milk and comes out in the cheese and makes yellower cheese. That does not happen with goats, which is why goat's milk is very white. It's described as sharp cheddar. So I'm from New England. To me, sharp cheddar means like I take a bite and my mouth is really, really watering, kind of explodes with acidity. This is spritzing of acidity. Texturally and flavor-wise, it does not feel like it is aged for 6 to 12 months. The grass-fed milk is not really driving the flavor here. It's too big a production. It's not a small enough, handcrafted enough cheese to really be feeling the impact of where the cheese is made. Goat milk Cheddar-Style. So here we have another famous cheese, cheddar, that is typically traditionally made of cow milk. Here we've got it made of goat milk. The label describes it as soft and creamy, which is not really a description I would give of most cheddars I've had. And it is pretty soft. I find goat milk, when it's made into an aged style of cheese, can have kind of like a powdery smell. Sadly, it sort of tastes a bit like baby powder. It's really just got a not great texture. What I love about aged goat cheeses is that they can turn a goat milk hater around. They can have that kind of caramely sweetness, and this doesn't really have that. It just tastes kind of flat. This is not my favorite goat cheddar. Toscano with black pepper. We've got a fully formed, fully aged cheese on its own, and then we have these different flavorings that are added to the rind. Very finely ground black pepper. So generally when they're doing these kinds of flavor additions to the rind of the cheese, they're making kind of like a paste finely ground pepper, and some sort of fat or oil so it will adhere to the exterior of the cheese. This tastes like a really good American Parmesan. Definitely not crystally and crunchy like the Italian Parmigiano Reggiano, but sweet and nutty and really approachable and crowd friendly. You don't really get any essence of pepper at all. And I think in order to get any impact from the pepper, you're gonna have to eat the rind. Normally you wouldn't eat the rind on a hard cheese, but here it's really been coated in the pepper, I think, for your eating pleasure. It's more like a white pepper. It's not really spicy, it's like sort of a softer heat. But you're only ever getting that flavor when you eat the rind of the cheese. The rest of the time you're basically getting American-made Parmesan. So I can see how that would irritate some people. Next up, shredders and melters. These are great for grilled cheese and melting into sauces. Fontina. This is traditionally an Italian cheese. Don't know where Trader Joe's is made, but I'm guessing not Italy. It doesn't taste like much. I think I would probably call it bland. When I look at this, I have to compare it to introductory level Fontinas, and they're all gonna be this kind of buttery, mild cheese. I give props for texture. This is not gummy, and it's not plasticky, and those are the two biggest flaws with most Fontina on the market. So this Fontina has a waxed rind, and some Fontinas do and some do not, but that wax is there to retain moisture and really help this cheese maintain its core identity as a pliable, moist, great melting cheese. Red wax is most commonly used for Dutch Gouda. This Fontina will do exactly the same thing as a red wax Gouda. People might buy it because of the appearance rather than the name. Creamy Havarti. Havarti is the most famous cheese made in the country of Denmark, but it's now made all over the United States and in other European countries as well. It is what's called a washed curd cheese. They drain out the whey, which is quite acidic, and they add hot water, and that bathing of the curds makes the cheese less acidic in flavor, milder or sweeter. It also contributes to the texture and the elasticity of the curd. So you get this like real bendy texture. It doesn't snap or break. In terms of this Havarti, I'm seeing little irregular, they almost look like pinpricks. And that's pretty typical for this cheese. It has to do with when the curds are being pressed together, little pockets of air get trapped. Unlike the Fontina, the Havarti is really, really creamy. It's almost like eating a room temperature bite of butter. Compared to other Havartis out there, this one is very mild, a little bit salty. Many other Havartis I've had have a bit more tang to them, which I think makes them a little bit more interesting as an eating or a snacking cheese. This is really something I just want to melt and I want to put a lot of stuff with and I want to enjoy the texture. Double cream Gouda. Technically, you would pronounce it Gouda or Gouda. Like all Gouda, this one has a waxed rind, but it's this like thin spray wax, and it's kind of weird to me that the Fontina has the traditional red wax and then the Gouda has something different. The texture of this one is much firmer than the Havarti. Still very creamy, but it breaks when I bend it. Even though it's firm on the bend, it's really, really creamy when you're eating it. This one is starting to have some of the flavors that you'll see in Gouda as it ages over time that I love, that I think make it a little bit more interesting. A hint of a caramely note, very subtle kind of nutty flavors. Again, it doesn't have anything in the cheese, but just compared to the previous two cheeses, this one has some flavor complexity. This is called double cream Gouda cheese. Typically in the world of cheese, double cream or double creme. Cream is added to the milk to amp up the fat content. What's weird to me about this cheese is that this is called a double cream Gouda, but there's no cream added to it. I'm not entirely sure what that refers to. Compared to the others in this section, the Gouda is the best for a combo of flavor and texture. Cheddar and Gruyere Mélange. This is combining cheddar cheese, which is usually sharp and not a very great melting cheese, with Gruyere, which is low in acidity, very nutty in flavor, and melts like a dream. You're not taking cheddar and Gruyere and like grinding them up and mixing them together. You're tweaking steps to achieve certain flavors and perhaps certain textural characteristics. It's more bendy than a cheddar, but not as bendy as a Gruyere. We're getting somewhere in the middle. Gruyere has an amazing, powerful, nutty aroma, and this does not really have that. Smells a little bit cheddary, I guess. I think the goal here is basically to give you a cheddar that's gonna melt really well. But I want nutty flavors or sharpness, and I'm not really getting either one of those things. Compared to other blended recipes I've had, this one is underwhelming, but I bet it would melt really well. That said, I would just go melt Gruyere. Le Gruyere, more commonly known in the US as Gruyere, it is always made of raw or unpasteurized cow milk. These are large format wheels, 80-pound wheels that are aged anywhere from 4 to 12 months. Looking at it, it looks kind of young to me. It is a cheese that gets washed a bit in salt water as it ages, and sometimes you'll see brown or orange kind of stickiness on the rind. When I don't see any action on the rind, it kind of makes me wonder what the cheese is gonna taste like. This is a really great example of a kind of introductory Gruyere. It just tastes very young and very mild. The like beef bouillon, the savory notes, the oniony notes, these are all the things I look for in Gruyere, kind of expect in Gruyere, not really happening here. My recommendation would be you buy your Gruyere elsewhere. Comté. If Gruyere is the poster child cheese of Switzerland, Comté is like the lesser known version of that cheese from France. I was mentioning with the Gruyere, the rind was kind of sanitized. This looks a little more like a rind. There's some surface mold. It's a little bit harder and sharper edged. These are cheeses that they're called natural rinded cheeses. They are aged in open air, temperature and humidity controlled rooms, and the rind develops naturally. It's okay. It's pretty mild. A good aged Comté at a specialty shop is probably gonna be at least twice as expensive as what you would spend at Trader Joe's. I don't think this is gonna give you the flavor experience that you want, so ultimately, if you wanna branch out and try this, I think a specialty shop is worth the extra spend. Soft and spreadable cheeses. These are mild, creamy, and great to use for cooking. Fresh mozzarella cheese log. What I want to see in a fresh mozzarella is bright white appearance, no spots of any color, and moisture. I want my mozzarellas to be sweet, creamy, with a good hit of salt. No rubbery texture, no gumminess. This is right on the mark. It's what's called a high moisture mozzarella. So it's packaged with some of the water in the plastic to keep it very creamy and not dry. This is comparable to Bel Gioioso or any other best-selling high-moisture mozzarella brand. Fresh mozzarella cheese pearls. This is pearlini, little pearls, the most classic and best-selling shape of little mozzarella balls. No smell, exactly what I want to see with fresh mozzarella. These are really tasty. A little bounce, a little spring, but still creaminess. Compared to a ball or a log of mozzarella, the smaller size just makes them a little bit creamier in texture. Another great example of mozzarella, and honestly, probably a lot less expensive than the national best-selling brand. Marinated fresh mozzarella cheese. Unlike the pearls, they actually use a larger size mozzarella ball, and they're marinated with oil, garlic, herbs, and red pepper. I don't usually like pre-marinated mozzarella. The flavors tend to get kind of dull. The cheese can sit in the oil and get kind of slimy. But this is really good. The oil is nice and light. And impressively, they got the herb mix down pat. And the garlic flavor comes through really clearly. This is the most impressive mozzarella so far, in my opinion. Burrata. Regular mozzarella is what's called a pulled curd cheese. The curd is being dipped and stretched in hot water and formed into a ball or a log. In the case of burrata, they start with that same process, but they're going for a very, very thin, almost like sheet that can then be filled with little chopped up bits of mozzarella and a good amount of cream. It's very decadent, very rich. Like all mozzarellas, bright white, no smell, but really it's all about the texture on the inside. And this one's okay, but it tastes a little bit like cottage cheese. What I'm looking for in a burrata is a center that's really sort of silky, liquidy, creamy. The center of this one's a little bit more mealy. By making a burrata that has more of kind of like a chunky, solid interior and less of a liquidy interior, you're really making a cheese that's gonna have longer shelf life. The really, really authentic burratas are super perishable cheeses, and I understand that that doesn't make a lot of sense for a store like Trader Joe's. Definitely worth trying, but I would say not my favorite burrata. Mascarpone. Mascarpone is basically the milk and the cream are brought together. They coagulate, and you gotta get rid of the liquid. You're left with this rich, fluffy mass of milk solids. Mascarpone is so thick, it's like sticks to the roof of your mouth. This one is really good. Texturally, it doesn't have any graininess, and it's got that foundation of sweetness. I really like it in dessert applications, and I really like it in lieu of cream in pasta dishes. This is a great mascarpone, not an easy cheese to find, so now's your chance to try it. Traditional whole milk ricotta cheese. Fresh cheeses are about the texture, the creaminess, the sweetness of the fresh milk. This is not a place to skimp on fat. When I'm buying ricotta, I want to hear whole milk ricotta. I'm hoping that this is going to be as creamy, sweet, and fluffy as it appears. Bummer. This is really grainy. The best ricottas are like perfect, moist little curds, and they don't have any graininess. It's a shame because the flavor is really great. This has that wonderful recooked sweet flavor, but it's kind of a bummer that the texture is so grainy. It does have some milk, and it uses vinegar. And I think that the grainy texture is coming from the use of the vinegar and honestly, the reliance on whey, which is the traditional ingredient. But here, I think it's just been cooked a little too hard, and you get that granulated texture that I really don't want in my ricotta. Part skim ricotta cheese. This is ricotta made with partially skimmed milk. Usually a red flag for me. I'm looking for whole milk ricotta for that creamier texture. This is really grainy. It's kind of like paste. The flavor's really nice. It's sweet. The fat content is not markedly less. So if you're reaching for skim ricotta because you want something that's lower in fat, it's about 6% less in fat. It's not a huge difference. Go for the Trader Joe's whole milk ricotta, or even look for some other national brands. Calabro is my personal favorite. Chevre. We've got another white cheese with no rind. The big difference here is that Chevre is made of goat milk. There are flavors of goat milk that are gonna be tartar, tangier, more lemony, and different from cow's milk, so not as sweet. So right off the bat, it smells different. It smells more like yogurt. This is very creamy. It's almost like clay. It's very mouth coating. These are very high moisture cheeses. They've got a lot of water in them, and that kind of reads in your mouth as smearable, spreadable creaminess. This one also has really good salt. A lot of fresh goat cheeses are kind of under-salted, and they taste kind of like lemony and flat. This one's got really good salt to support the acidity. So I'm no doctor, but a lot of people talk about being lactose intolerant, and actually what I find is that there are many people who have trouble digesting cow's milk cheeses. Their molecular structure can be harder for our bodies to digest. A lot of people have no trouble eating goat or sheep milk cheeses. They're easier for your body to break down and digest. So your issues with cheese may not be a lactose thing, they may be a cow's milk thing. This is a great introduction to fresh goat cheese. Chevre with honey. So typically when you make a flavor-infused goat cheese, you make your fresh cheese and then you add the honey afterwards and sort of combine it into the cheese before you pipe it out into these little logs. Wow, you got a hit of sweetness up front. It doesn't read as honey, it just tastes kind of sugary up front, and then it fades away. It's pretty subtle. If you're someone who's buying goat cheese with honey in it, you want that honey flavor. And this is a little timid. I wouldn't say it's bad. It's just not what I think people are looking for when they buy a flavored goat cheese. Chevre with fine herbs. It smells really strongly of tarragon. Usually parsley and basil are the lead herbs here. This is like an explosion of herb flavor. The flavor of this goat cheese is present, which I like. But then on top of it, chervil and tarragon, and those flavors are coming through really, really strongly. This one really tastes fresh and bright and strong. This may not be a perfect little log, but that's because it's moist and creamy. If it were dry and crumbly, it would hold its shape perfectly. I'd rather have a cheese that's very spreadable, very luxurious in texture. This one is excellent. Crumbled goat cheese. I feel you can buy a log of goat cheese and crumble it yourself with a fork, and you're probably gonna wind up with a creamier, fresher tasting goat cheese than if you buy it pre-crumbled. You've got these little distinctive clusters. It's much drier than the goat cheese that we were looking at in a log form. Impressively, when you eat it, it retains a good amount of creaminess. It does taste a little bit less balanced, kind of sharp-edged, a little bit too acidic. The thing I really don't like about crumbled goat cheese is that all the crumbled goat cheeses out there include cellulose. It's an anti-caking agent. It's added so that the clumps don't all stick together. But I find that it gives kind of like a powdery finish to the cheese. In general, the quality of the cheese that's used to make a pre-crumbled product is just not as high as the quality of the cheese that's sold in a wedge or a log or a wheel. To make a crumbled cheese, they're going to start with a cheese that is lower in moisture, and or the cheese has more acidity to make a cheese that's more breakable in texture. Do the crumble yourself, you'll wind up with a better cheese. Feta. Traditionally, feta is made in Greece out of goat and sheep milk. That being said, we are tasting cow milk feta. The way you make feta is that you pickle it. You take a fresh cheese and it is immersed in salt water for days or weeks or even months. So it's gonna be wet and have a saltier flavor. Here's what's good about this. Many cow milk fetas are very bland and very salty. This has some balance to it. It's got a strong brininess. It's not overwhelming. And it's also got a pretty good moisture to the texture. A lot of cow milk fetas are very dry and crumbly. They don't have the added fat that sheep milk has. So you wind up with this sort of mealier, drier, textured, very salty cheese, but it's cheaper. This manages to still have some creaminess and some moisture, and it's not overwhelmingly salty. So on the whole, this is a pretty darn good cow's milk feta. Fancy imports. These are traditional cheeses with a strong regional identity. Double cream brie. All brie is gonna have a white edible rind that is made of a mold called Penicillium candidum. That's where the rind comes from. You can see it's actually papery in texture or a little bit fluffy on the outside. It smells a little bit moldy because it's covered in molds. This brie suffers from what many domestic bries suffer from, which is a chewy rind. The rind on your brie should be soft and skin-like. It should be a cohesive part of the cheese. You do not want it to be crunchy, snappy, or chewy. And this is kind of snappy, like a sausage skin on the outside of the cheese. But all the things I'm describing are very, very typical. So if you think about national best-selling brands, this would be very comparable to that. Fromage Pavé. Fromage Pavé literally means cheese brick. It's Trader Joe's French triple creme cheese. The triple cream style is a brie-style cheese that's had cream added to it to increase the butterfat content. It's called a bloomy rind, so that white edible rind is made of mold. It will contribute mushroomy aromas to the cheese. It's really luscious, really spreadable. That molded rind is actually breaking down the cheese over time, so the textural breakdown that's happening here, right under the rind, is where we're gonna have the most concentrated flavor. Again, it doesn't have a really strong smell, and you don't want it to. If these cheeses smell really strongly of ammonia, they're overripe, and they're gonna taste really bitter, and they're not gonna be good. It's just like eating whipped butter, and I see nothing wrong with that. The other thing I really, really like about this cheese is the rind. The rind is soft, it's cohesive, it's part of the cheese. I don't know why one would choose the brie over this. Goat's milk Gouda-Style cheese. This is made in Holland. It is a Gouda recipe, but instead of using cow's milk, they use goat milk. You can see that the cheese is really, really white. Has to do with the way goats process beta-carotene. Beta-carotene is what makes cheese look yellow. We've got that great Gouda bend, but here we finally have a cheese that has some aroma. It smells kind of like dulce de leche. Beautiful, deep, dense, buttery texture, and it's got that awesome goat Gouda flavor. For people who've only had cow milk Gouda, this is gonna be noticeably sweeter, caramely, toffee. People out there who hate goat cheese, when you get into the world of goat Gouda, it's totally different, and it's a cheese that can really change your mind about what goat's milk can taste like. Manchego. Manchego is a name-protected cheese. It can only be made in the region of La Mancha, Spain. And from there, it can be aged anywhere from a couple of months to more than a year. It can be made of raw milk or pasteurized milk. So on the one hand, Manchego means something really specific, and on the other hand, there's a really broad spectrum of what you get when you get a Manchego. So this hatch mark pattern is characteristic of Manchego. It actually is a throwback to the time when the cheese was drained in baskets that were made of reeds. Today, that is not how the cheese is ripened or aged, but the pattern is imprinted using plastic molds, and it harkens back to that original reed basket. You don't eat the rind, it is wax. The other thing just to point out is that it's gone greasy. This is a cheese made of sheep milk. Sheep milk is higher in fat than cow milk or goat milk, and at room temperature, that butter fat will start to leach out. So when you have a sheep milk cheese and it's greasy on the plate, that's totally normal. I will say it's not as concentrated a flavor as I was hoping for, but there's a reason why Manchego is very popular. It is a very approachable cheese, and I find it has flavors that are also reminiscent of like the mac and cheese powder. This has that inherent cheesy quality. There are many better Manchegos out there, but this is an excellent place to start. Mini Basque. This is another aged sheep milk cheese made in the French Pyrenees. Mini Basque is a larger production version of a really famous French cheese called Petite Basque. This is sort of an homage to that traditional cheese. It's just made on a larger scale, and it's more readily available and less expensive. Like Manchego, it's going to have higher fat content. It's also got a wax rind, and it's got kind of like a springier, semi-soft texture. This is a really easy eating cheese. The main thing I think of when I taste this cheese is coconut. It doesn't actually taste like eating a coconut, but the like fatty richness of coconut is what this cheese is all about. It too has some of those kind of mac and cheesy flavors. Everyone will like this cheese. It is one that I strongly encourage you to try if you haven't already had it, and if it's one you know, to keep it on your regular rotation. Italian truffle cheese. Many people criticize truffle cheeses because they often rely on truffle oil for their flavor intensity. And I think some people feel like that makes it a fake cheese, like it's fake flavoring. But the truth of the matter is, if you were to just put truffle in the cheese, it wouldn't taste like anything. So without that oil, you're not gonna get the aromatics that we're all looking for. Traditionally, they're made of sheep milk, and this is an Italian truffle cheese that is made of cow milk. The base cheese is going to be milder, and really this is a cheese that's designed to just be about the flavor of the truffle. It's not whack you over the head truffle-y, which actually I'm kind of happy about, because if it were, that would mean it was gonna be just like greased up with truffle oil. It's definitely truffle. You can get the truffle really clearly. The cheese itself is kind of sour and kind of gummy in texture. I want the base cheese to be good before I layer in the flavor. I wish this were a more aged cheese with the same amount of truffle hit. Parmigiano Reggiano Stravecchio. Don't hate on me for my pronunciation. This is the king of cheese. This is Parmigiano Reggiano. Stravecchio means extra aged. This one is aged for 3 years. And it must, by Italian and EU law, be made of unpasteurized cow's milk When you heat treat a milk and you pasteurize the milk, you kill any bacteria that are naturally present. And those bacteria contribute to the flavors and aromas of the cheese over time. You have more opportunity for complexity with a raw milk cheese than you may with a pasteurized milk cheese. I love that you can see these white patches. These are crystallized amino acids. You'll start to see them in cheese around 9 to 12 months of age. And they contribute a kind of crystally texture to the cheese. This is the strongest smelling cheese that I've tasted yet today. When you have no water in the cheese, you get a lot of flavor and a lot of aroma. Toasted nuts, really toasty smells. Because this is so aged, it is very dry. It's very flaky, really crunchy, like Pop Rocks. This is a really excellent Parmigiano Reggiano. This manages to still have some creaminess, and instead of being dry, it's crunchy, it's crystallized. And that to me is like textural perfection. You can get Parmigiano Reggiano pretty much everywhere now, and a lot of it is dried out and not great. So this is a surprisingly great Parmigiano Reggiano, and I will be eating more of it. 1000-day Gouda. People may not be as familiar with aged Gouda, and it's a style that I really try to steer people to because it is extremely likable. The crystallization, those tyrosine crystals, form around 9 to 12 months of age. Here we've got 3 years of ripening, and they're even bigger here than they were in the Parmigiano Reggiano. It's like every bite is full of crunch. Being a Gouda, it's always gonna have that waxed rind. The aroma of this cheese is also incredibly intense. It's caramely, it's nutty. It makes me think of pecan pie. It's super crunchy. Very different from the Parm because it is much creamier. It's got really deep nuttiness. It's got vanilla, it's got caramel. Like everybody has to have this cheese. I really don't think there's a markedly better aged Gouda out there. Cambozola. Camembert meets Gorgonzola. Cambozola. It has a white molded rind like a camembert or a Brie, and then it has blue mold on the inside like a Gorgonzola. Texture. It's all about the texture. Very buttery. The blue mold is definitely present. It contributes kind of bitter notes like bitter greens and also more mushroomy flavors to the cheese. For people who don't like blue cheese, you're probably not gonna like this. For people who are interested in blue, this is a really great starter because it's not as salty, as peppery, or as overwhelming as other kinds of blue cheese. This is a very delicate cheese, and high turnover really helps with quality with this style of cheese. And one thing that I know Trader Joe's has is high turnover. So I do think that the quality that you can expect to get of the Cambozola is probably among the highest because they're cutting it and selling it and cutting it and selling it very quickly. Blue Stilton. Stilton is an English cow's milk blue cheese. It's got this crazy natural rind on the outside of the cheese. This is what happens when a cheese is aged in an open air environment. While the rind is really important, it's generally not that tasty to eat. So I'm gonna cut the rind off. I mean, I know this is a blue cheese, but it smells like aged cheddar. That's really good. The way you make a blue cheese is that you add blue mold spores to the milk during the cheese making process, but that mold won't grow without air. So after the cheese is formed, the maker pierces holes in the rind of the cheese. Air gets into those holes and the mold starts to grow from the inside out. At the same time, they put a lot of salt on the outside of the cheese, and the salt migrates in as the blue mold is growing out. And those things are happening simultaneously. So if you look at the blue molding in this cheese versus the Cambozola is like little pock marks of blue. It's a very wet cheese. It's like a big wet sponge. And so when they pierce holes in the cheese to let air in, to let the blue mold grow, the curd just kind of collapses. It can't hold itself up. So you don't ever have an opportunity for veining to develop. You just get these little pockets of blue. When you're working with a firmer, denser cheese like Stilton, when you pierce holes in the cheese, the holes remain, and you get these more even, kind of cohesive mapping of blue veins that develop throughout the cheese. That also impacts the flavor. It's more kind of evenly distributed. It's not as intense because it spreads throughout the cheese. This is really fudgy and dense. It does have those fungal notes, and it does have some of those like fruity, peppery notes of blue, but it's very balanced, and it's got really good salt to kind of anchor it. I'm frankly surprised at how good this Stilton is. Party tricks. These are cheeses with wild flavors and classic mix-ins. White Stilton with apricots. So now we're into the world of Stilton that isn't blue cheese. White Stilton was created as a base cheese that different flavorings, specifically fruits, could be added to. This is a rindless, dense, firm cheese that is sort of, I guess I would call it a cheddar-ish base recipe, but it is not sharp like a cheddar. The flavor here is about the additive. It's not about the cheese. The cheese is milled, it's ground up, and the fruit is added to that mixture. So you're really getting all of the flavor here from the fruit. Additionally, I really get a sweetness as well. It's very typical that sugar will be added, in this case fructose. I'll be totally honest, I don't get the appeal of these cheeses, but people really love them. I don't feel like I'm eating a cheese. I feel like I'm eating some sort of cheesecakey dessert situation. So I would say if that appeals to you, you can get some at Trader Joe's. Blueberry vanilla chèvre. So here we have a fresh goat cheese log that's been rolled in sweetened dried blueberries and flavored with vanilla. The sweetness of the blueberry really, really counterbalances the tanginess in the goat cheese. I've only had a couple of versions of blueberry vanilla goat cheese. To my knowledge, there's really one major producer in the US who's making all the cheese for everybody who sells this style of cheese. This isn't my preferred style, but it is really good for what it is. It's very consistent with everything else that's out there. Sweetheart White Stilton. Okay, this is the ultimate insane flavored cheese. This is White Stilton with chocolate, caramel flavored fudge pieces, and dried sweetened cherries. Kind of crumbly like the apricot one. I've been dreading this cheese all day. And weirdly, it's not as like frightening as I thought it was gonna be. There's so much stuff in it. The cheese is merely the glue that holds it all together. I think White Stilton is the ideal base for flavoring because it is really very neutral and it is not about the cheese. You don't buy White Stilton without stuff in it. It's not a cheese that's available on its own. And it does have this very particular kind of like moist, crumbly texture that makes it smearable. So it's almost like, is it a spread or is it a piece of cheese? I've never seen this cheese anywhere. Could be a Trader Joe's exclusive, but if you want a sweet, spreadable cheese with lots of stuff in it, you've found your perfect sweetheart. Everything but the bagel cheddar. Maybe it's just me, but the idea of savory flavorings in cheese is a lot easier for me to get my head around. This is a cheddar in name only. It's not gonna have much in common with the cheddars that we've tasted today. And it is, like walking into a bagel shop. It's like garlicky and oniony. They do an amazing job of getting intense, concentrated flavor in every bite throughout the cheese. It's just very mushy and soft. It's not really cheddary at all. And it tastes like an everything bagel. If you're going for that flavor profile, this is nailing it 100%. And it would be an incredible melting cheese, which to me is just super conducive to this flavor profile. Cotswold Double Gloucester. There are a lot of cheeses in England, not technically cheddars. The cheese-making process is somewhat different. They usually take the name of the region they come from, and frankly, at least to me, they all remind me of cheddar. Double Gloucester is one of these cheeses. Cotswold is a flavored Double Gloucester. So you take Double Gloucester, and then you add onion and chive, and you get Cotswold. And that's what we have here. A firm, mild cheddar dyed orange by adding annatto. It's a plant-derived coloring, doesn't impact flavor, makes the cheese orange. This is younger cheese, it's moister, and it should be really dominated by onion and chive. The chive is freeze-dried. We're not adding fresh produce to the cheese, but you get a much greater concentration of flavor by using those dried ingredients. And this is really chivy right off the bat. This does taste more like cheese with a hint of chive. That's what Cotswold should be. Even though this says Trader Joe's Cotswold, there's only one Cotswold, and they've allowed Trader Joe's to put their brand on it. So this is Cotswold, and if you like that style of cheese, you're gonna be really, really happy. Cheddar with caramelized onions. This is an English farmhouse cheddar. The way they get the caramelized onion flavor in there is by using a marmalade of caramelized onion, which I think is brilliant. You address the stability issues, the shelf stable issues, at the same time that you can infuse a really intense flavor into the cheese. Flavor-wise, it's like super intense. I like a flavored cheese where I can taste the cheese first and the flavoring second. This is a cheese for somebody who wants to taste caramelized onion marmalade delivered in a delightful cheese block format. This is not my favorite cheese, but this is 150% of what it promises to be, and it tastes great. Cheddar with Scotch bonnet chili and red peppers. Here we have young cheddar infused with spicy Scotch bonnet chili relish and sweet red bell pepper. What I'm looking for is actual heat. If you tell me you're making a pepper cheese, I want it to be spicy. It's very vinegary smelling. Okay, that's pretty spicy, honestly. No joke. I don't really get the sweet red pepper at all, but I get the spicy pepper. The one drawback is the texture is very weird. It's mealy, sort of smushes down in your mouth in a way that I don't really care for that much. There aren't many cheeses that really deliver on the promise of spice the way this one does, but I've definitely had spicy cheeses with better texture. My top 7 cheeses of the day in recommended tasting order are Chevre with fine herbs, Fromage Pavé, goat's milk Gouda-Style, mini Basque, unexpected cheddar, 1000-day Gouda, and blue Stilton. The Chevre with fine herbs I loved for the bright, fresh, and unexpected herbaceous blend. Fromage Pavé for that extra hit of cream, insane butteriness, and whisper thin rind. Goat's milk Gouda-Style is an amazing introduction to the wonders of aged goat milk cheeses. Mini Basque shows you the world of sheep milk cheese beyond Manchego, coconutty and mellow. Unexpected cheddar because 7 years of Trader Joe's customers can't be wrong. Parmesan and cheddar go really well together. The 1000-day Gouda was probably the best one overall. It reminded me of vanilla, bourbon, caramel. The flavor went on forever. And blue Stilton, because I think every cheese plate needs a blue cheese, and this one was amazing, minerally, balanced, and not at all overwhelming. Trader Joe's kills it at all of the fundamental cooking cheeses, but where they really shine is in curating an amazing assortment of Cheese 101 classics. You can put together a great cheese board any night of the week at an insanely good value.